Good evening. This is the Auburn Finance Committee. Today is April 23rd, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. Calling this meeting to order. Allow me to read the remote participation script. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, it's 1-786-535-3211, with an access code of 991-599-357. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that are provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present, can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Trevor Sansucci. Here. Michael Marshall. Here. Patrick Jones. Here. George Graham. Here. Stephen Consiglio. Here. Andrew Shar. Here. Thank you. And town officials and employees, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois. Here. And Administrative Assistant Danielle Chamberlain-Roberts.
Here.
Thank you. So first up on the agenda, we have some transfers to take. The first ones are from, that I have in front of me are from DDIS.
Through the chair, make a motion that we take these 7 as one transfer.
Second.
A motion second to take these transfers all as one. All in favor?
Aye.
Amy, did you have a quick presentation as to what these are before we read them off?
Mr. Chair, would it be okay if I just give a little intro?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what is happening with our mapping software is there's a license that's going to be expiring. So we took that, the opportunity to look at some software to make some changes on it. And we got a proposal from CAI Technologies for Access GIS services. And what this is going to be able to do is it's going to act as information. It's going to collect the information and have all our departments be able to access it, which is not what's happening right now. So the part of it for DDIS, and I'll let Amy also talk about it, that they're interested in, is that this mapping software can also connect to OpenGov, which they're using right now. And they feel that would be very beneficial to be able to access all of the information that'll be collected in here. So the transfer that's being brought before you this evening is to make the transition over to the new software to connect it to the OpenGov, and also to, just want to look at it right here. So it's for the setup and the integration of the systems. And it's $9,689 for it. So in order for this to happen, that's a very good, we feel that that's a very good price for all the departments to be able to access all of this information in one place now. And I'll let Amy make any comments. And Mike Marino is also on, so he can talk about the license and that part of it if you have any other questions.
Amy?
Sure. Thank you, Karen, for the introduction on it. So right now, the request that you have in front of you is to cover a portion of the costs for the new software. So a portion of that would be paid by inspectional services, and the remainder of the contract would be paid by the assessor's office. The portion that DDIS is looking to cover, like Karen mentioned, includes the startup costs and integration costs for the permitting and software service that we're already using, which is OpenGov. Right now, we have limitations with our current software, Maps Online. The license is ending, and it does not connect to our permitting and licensing software, so it causes a lot of issues for inspectional services, for permits that we're issuing based on the addresses of residents and businesses in town. So by being able to use this new software, it's going to make things more efficient for our department, but also easier for residents to look up information. It's also going to provide more up-to-date, accurate information, because right now we're having to manually enter addresses, new addresses into our online permitting software. This will automatically run updates daily, so it'll be a big improvement for the town and our residents. And the costs that we're looking at for it are one-time fees for the integration and setup fees. So the annual cost of the new software is very similar to what we're already paying for with Maps Online, but this is a much more advanced technology and service that we're looking at. And for the transfers that you have, we've had some unplanned staffing changes in DDIS, which did leave a little bit of a balance in some of the salary line items. So we're looking to transfer out of those to help cover the costs.
Trevor?
Just curious, you mentioned that a portion of this was also being paid by the assessor's office. So I'm just curious what the percentage breakout is there and how we came to that breakout of who's covering what. Is that consistent with prior years? Obviously, it's something that other departments are going to be using as well, so I understand the need for, splitting it out. Just more about, is everyone getting a fair shake on who's paying what portion of it?
If I could, so the assessor's office is paying for the integration or with the new software for the Maps Online. And for the, so that, and the setup fee for that, and for the new license that's needed for the Maps Online. That was part of the quote, and then there was a separate part of a quote for the setup and the integration with
So they're
OpenGov.
okay, so they're able to break that out specifically in the contract so they know who's kind of, okay.
Yeah, so we have the vendor that gave us a breakout, and then we also went to OpenGov, and that's some of the costs here that DDIS has to pay for that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Patrick?
This might be one from Mike online, but has it been tested? I mean, do we know if other people are using this interface?
Michael,
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, we do. When we contacted the company, we had a presentation. He did give us some surrounding towns that we use, one of them being Sutton, Mass. And there are many others in the state that are using it. So it is a tested platform. It has been around for a while. So we do know that it works well.
Okay, so so this is both a user interface for the people on one side of OpenGov or Maps, whichever they're using it, and for the employee. So it's a two-side user interface.
Correct, yes. There will be a public interface linked to our website where the public can go and view permits, dog licenses, such as that coming from OpenGov, or assessing data, tax cards that they have. And that'll all be accessible in the public through this system.
And the budget that we're approving for 2026, it's been stated that the ongoing costs, there's a one-time setup fee and so forth, but the ongoing costs are sort of de minimis, are already fed into the new budget?
That's correct. There is a budget item in my budget that went to the previous map system, Maps Online, that can cover the ongoing fee for this new platform.
Thank you.
I got a question. So today we're approving a transfer for 9,600. What are we paying for the Maps Online that we're not going to use anymore? Is that correct?
Correct. There's an annual fee of, I believe it's about $3,300, and there's a $3,000, just look here. There's a $3,000 setup fee.
We're not using Maps Online anymore? I thought it was going to interface to work with Maps Online. because they two would not, when we originally started the presentation, I thought I heard that Maps Online does not interface with OpenGov, so this will enable the interface to take place, but are we actually replacing MAP?
That's correct.
We're
We are
replacing.
replacing it. That
Okay,
Maps
wasn't
Online
clear.
is going away, and we're having the Access GIS program.
Because the word Access GIS is in there, I thought the Access connected the two, so it wasn't clear to me. But
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Maps is going away.
Yes.
So Maps is going away, that costs $3,300. This new thing costs $3,300 a year and about $6,000 to set up? Or is that not actually the whole cost, because this is just the DDIS portion? Just trying to get a picture of how big the
Yeah,
whole...
no, so the Maps portion of it is going to have a setup fee of $3,000 and an annual fee of $3,000. And we're currently budgeting, I believe, like $3,300 for the annual fee for Maps Online, so that's going to be a neutral right there. And then on the other side of it, the DDIS, that's where this transfer right here, this $9,700, is the setup fee for this Access GIS program, and also the interface with the OpenGov.
And what is that?
It's only going to be a $500 annual expense. It's just heavier on the setup, because there's also this new software, the Access GIS, and then also on the OpenGov side that they have to provide data and work with this company. So there's a fee for that as well.
So once it's set up, though, it's relatively inexpensive.
Correct, yes.
Just adding new properties, I assume, as they show up.
Right, I mean, if there's some additional layers that we want to add to it, like if we want to see certain other things, then there might be a setup fee for that, but it seems very, very, very minimal.
How much does OpenGov cost us a year?
That I'm not sure. Do you know it all, Amy?
What was the question?
How much does OpenGov cost per year?
Mike, if you're there, I believe he has that in the IT budget for the annual cost for OpenGov.
Is in my budget. I'm looking that up right now. Give me one moment, please. So for FY26, OpenGov, we have $44,800.
And this is a somewhat of an unexpected expense, or is this, we weren't planning on doing this originally?
Well, what happened is that we are going to lose the license for it, so we're trying to be proactive and do it now. And like how DDIS, we're actually planning on having this done by the end of the fiscal year. And when we looked in, because DDIS has some balances left because of change in personnel, you know, someone leaving, someone coming on at a little bit lower salary, we have the flexibility to do it now. We don't have that flexibility in fiscal '26 budget.
Chair, you're essentially choosing to just, instead of renew Maps Online, move to a different Maps software, and this is just the work of setting that up, right? So it's not like the expense of the professional services to get it set up is unexpected, but either way, we had to pay for a map software next year. That part's not unexpected.
Correct. And we're not, that's right.
Any additional questions? Andy?
And 100% of the functionality that we currently have is covered under this new program? So we're not like losing anything by switching? We're just gaining?
Correct, we're only gaining more features that we don't currently have, both for the town staff side and the public side.
And it shows all permits and licenses through the town now if we have this set up? Am I understanding that correct? To the public, I should say?
So there are certain features that we can have available on the GIS software that will show some of the information, and we might be able to connect like permits and licenses that have been issued through OpenGov at specific properties. That's where the interfacing comes between the two softwares. But there are different layers that we can add onto the mapping software to make more information available to residents that we're not able to do right now. And it also takes information from the state GIS mapping and adds it onto, it would add it onto our levels, which we don't currently have with Maps Online, which Maps Online will not be an option going forward because of the discontinuation.
So this allows us to grow as well? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And OpenGov doesn't have any of this capability?
OpenGov is permitting and licensing software, the portion that we have. It doesn't have any GIS mapping software available, but this is actually one of the GIS mapping softwares that they recommend to use that integrates well with their system. One of the issues we had with our current software with Maps Online, there was no capability for the two to integrate.
Just to define integration, there's information that can flow from one system to the other that before you were manually keying.
Correct, yes. Yep, the ability for the two softwares to speak to each other.
So this can actually populate the softwares before they were due entry.
Trevor, did you have something?
Second.
Okay, so we have
We haven't done any yet.
I have
We have seven to
to
read.
I have to read a little bit before we get to that point, but thank you.
We just take them as one, didn't we?
But I still have to read them in, just, from the salary building account, amount $1,777. These are all going to go to professional services / tech. From the salary local inspector, $2,491. From the salary clerk account, $1,042. From the overtime account, $2,295. From the salary admin support account, $695. And another one, another salary admin support account, also $695. And
They're all different accounts.
yeah, but I'm just looking at account numbers, I'm sorry, that is 61, I'm sorry. Another salary admin support account, also $695. Do I have a motion? We have a motion on the floor to approve, and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have, the next one is going to be a transfer from the reserve fund. This is going from the IT department. It is for hardware, software maintenance. The amount requested is $21,000. Karen, Michael, who wants to go first on this one?
Just dropped.
I just noticed that Mike,
Mike, just the
Yeah.
moment to shine.
yes, so I will tell you what I know about this,
Okay.
is pretty
So
much.
we'll see if he gets back.
Yes, so we need some emergency repairs to the fiber network for internet and phone connectivity. And from what I understand, and I am not a tech person, is that there's there's multiple connections at different locations. But at the senior center, I think we're down to like the last connection there. So this is one of the locations where we really need to have this done now, because if we lose the connectivity, we could lose internet and/or their phones. Oh, Mike's back on? Oh, hi, Mike.
Nigel, we lost you.
I was trying to do the best I could on the explanation, but I'll let you take it from here if you would.
Sorry, I lost connection for a moment. This is for the fiber connection, I'm assuming?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so we encountered an issue last Monday where we had lost connection at a building, and we have the fiber company out running fiber for another project, and they were able to take a look at it, and they were able to trace it back to a break on Bryn Mawr Ave. And we currently have 2 buildings down to their last pair of fiber, which means that if there's additional damage, those buildings will lose connection. And just the other day, we lost connection at another site. Thankfully, it's not a critical site, but it is one that we did lose connection to, and that's due to this break as well. So it is a critical thing that we do need to get fixed.
Trevor?
Yeah, my only question, and I might be way off here, but we have like proprietary contracts with Spectrum, right, for the internet, cable, all of that. So is there any shared responsibility and maintenance for the fiber optics and all of that in the town, or is it solely on us to take on the repairs on that?
The fiber lines were purchased directly through the town, so they aren't part of a Spectrum deal or anything like that. They are town property, so it is up to us.
Okay.
Michael, my question's relative to, do we have any redundancy in the system? And I'm hoping none of these issues are at public safety type buildings, but do we have any redundancy or backup, whether it's going over to cellular or, we got this meeting together to handle this one issue, but if, we weren't able to get ourselves to a meeting, we're a little bit limited in what our processes are relative to an emergency approval. I don't even know what the mechanism is if the system had gone down entirely. And I think that's sort of to Trevor's point is, if it's on a private vendor and they own the lines, we can certainly push back on them to say, you own it, come and fix it at any hour. We don't need an emergency meeting to approve funding.
Yeah. The way that the fiber line was created when it was first purchased, it's called a hub and spoke. Basically, there's one central location, it branches out to the other location, so there isn't redundancy built into it. And it was chosen that way because of the cost. At the time, it was very expensive to do that. We have been looking into building out what's called a loop rather than a hub and spoke, which means that if there is a break in one direction, it could go in the other direction. Part of the public safety fiber project that's being installed now does upgrade some of our lines to be capable of that in the future, but it is a big cost to do the entire town. And once this public safety project is done, we are going to go back and look at the cost now that some of the lines have been updated to see what it would cost to upgrade the whole town as a loop. And it was something that we had looked at previously, but it was deemed too expensive at the time.
Thank you. Trevor?
Yeah, I think that kind of just goes off, I just want to confirm, kind of goes off the heels of that, but, so we, similarly to how we kind of assess the town, say for like street paving and things like that, and we're taking sections of the city or the town on a basis, and kind of going in, there hasn't been any, we kind of had assessed that this would be too expensive to take on as a project, so we've kind of been punting on doing maintenance on this over the years. Is that what I'm gathering from that? That like we haven't been doing anything year over year to like maintain the lines, and now we're just kind of coming to a head on this being a problem?
Correct. For the most part, the lines are well. We had a survey done, I don't remember when it was, but several years ago, where the company came out and examined all the lines, and they were able to fix some of the issues that they found. But other than that, we haven't had any repairs, major repairs done on the lines, other than, I believe, 3 other times there were breaks. There was like a car that hit a pole, or I think there might have been 2 cars that hit poles, and there was another break. I'm not sure what happened at that time, but somebody was working on a pole and they severed the line. So those are the only major interruptions that we've had, but they weren't as big as this current one.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know how fiber optics work, so that's just where I'm going to start right there. But I guess my question is, should we preemptively be doing some, like, planning from a budgetary perspective for some sort of more routine surveying and maintenance to make sure that if there are issues in the future, that they don't grow to this scale? I don't know if that's something that, if it makes sense.
I think I'll just build upon your point. I think this is, Trevor mentioned roads, we talk about sewers, we talk about all things for capital improvement plans for long term. I think nowadays, we just spent a good amount of time talking about a software package that does the permitting and the mapping, and like we are a connected internet world at this point, and to have buildings fall off because we've got an antiquated system, if this building falls offline, all the stuff we just approved is now moot and, unavailable. So I think that infrastructure is ripe for something for future capital improvement plans to
Bless you.
get that infrastructure in place and secure and redundant.
And again, I mean, if it's, $15,000 to have them come out and survey it every couple years, but then, or you wait until something happens and it's 20,000, like, where's the cost? You weigh out the cost benefit. I again, confirmed, not a fiber optics expert, but just thinking that there's probably something we can be doing on a more routine basis.
Well, I think you've all heard me say, when Michael comes before us with his IT budget for the year, I'm always amazed at how small it is. And again, we're a tech society now, I feel like his budget should be on the larger side, and I think this is a good
It's
example.
not broken, don't fix it. No, I'm kidding.
It's not broken.
It's
I'm kidding,
broken.
I'm
It's
kidding.
broken now.
You're-
It's not broken.
Make a very valid point.
That's my only comment. Any other questions for Michael relative to this, or comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the transfer from the reserve account in the amount of $21,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. We had those two other transfers that were under $250 that the CFO was authorized to do. Was one from the DPW Parks, $206.11, and one from the town clerk's office in the amount of $15. But that's all approved, but they were in our packet, so I just wanted to mention them. The other thing we were hoping to accomplish tonight, because we had to do the emergency impromptu meeting relative to the reserve account, was to take care of some of our housekeeping things for town meeting that we didn't have numbers for. There were a bunch listed here of articles. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the only ones that we were waiting on numbers for was Articles 15, 16, 17, and 41. I believe all the other ones we had taken no position on. We're not going to readdress them. We were just, as a committee, not going to take a position. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on those. Okay. So if we want, we can discuss Article 15. This one was, we didn't have a number for, but this was, the Steve Town Meeting will vote to appropriate, and then we have a number of $4,405.94, which is the interest earned by the Auburn School Gymnasium Health and Recreational Trust Fund to offset school department costs at the Auburn High School in support of community health and recreational activities at Auburn High School Gymnasium and related facilities and equipment.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend that for
Approval.
approval. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Article 16, to see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $32,654.91 from the McKinney-Vento receipts within the general fund revenues to the Auburn School Department operating budget for fiscal year 2026 to fund transportation for students to and from school who have become homeless during fiscal year, for the fiscal year.
Motion to recommend approval.
Second.
Motion and a second on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Article 17, see if town meeting will vote to appropriate $1,609.60 from foster care transportation receipts within the general fund revenues to the Auburn School Department operating budget for fiscal year 2026 to fund transportation costs for students to and from school who are residing in foster care placements.
Motion to recommend approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And the last one we have on here is,
41.
it's not in our quick packet here, it's in the number 40.
Article 41 on page 9.
Page 9.
It's in the big.
Yeah, and that's in
this.
Which one?
It's in this packet, page 9.
Halfway down.
Page 9 through.
Right. And the
14.
number is at the bottom of 10.
Okay. Okay, so this was the one relative to a comprehensive independent audit of the town of Auburn, and we, did we discuss this one?
We did discuss it. I'd like to move the meeting along and make a motion not to recommend, or that we're not recommending.
So the piece we were waiting for was the amount,
The
right?
dollar amount,
The
that's all
dollar
we were
amount. So the dollar amount is now listed at $300,000.
And it's in the second to the last paragraph on the bottom of page 10.
Any discussion on this one before we take?
Did we get you were looking for, Karen, you were looking for a number correct on this too as well, independently of the petitioner, if I remember correctly?
Yes, and actually, interestingly enough, it came at the same number, $300,000.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I just want to defend my motion to not recommend, and I'm suggesting that we not recommend it because there's no cause. I can elaborate if you would like, but basically, at the end of the day, we've had a very fiscal sound, we've got a great rating as a community, and I don't see a specific reason to take, I mean, this could be upwards of 6, 8, 10 people's jobs. $300,000 to a budget of our size is a large amount of money, and I would be prudent in thinking that even for cause, I think we would then use the money to, I mean, we get audited as a town. There are other ways of checks and balances. We have a finance committee. We do a great job with our selectmen and the people running the town. So just in general, given the value of the warrant article and the fact that there's no cause, I can't support it, and I'm going to vote against it. So I have a motion to not to recommend.
Can I just, was there a presentation of the select board relative to, did we just have an audit come in recently? Or was there, can you mention that quickly before we just take,
Sure, that's correct. The independent auditor, Scanlon and Associates, Tom Scanlon, came in and gave a presentation of the annual audit for fiscal year 2024 at that meeting. And also, if I can just mention too, there was a suggestion of a audit by DLS, by the DOR, the Department of Revenue. And the select board is looking into that because they have some recommendations that DOR can make that will help us in our efficiency in the different departments. And from what I understood at the meeting is that the Board of Selectmen is going to recommend doing an audit by the DOR and then seeing what the results are at that point. But I believe that they did not recommend this agenda item either.
thank you.
I'll second Patrick's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second not to recommend Article 41 as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think the last item we have on our agenda that we've tabled a couple times was for us to have a discussion relative to the remote participation option for our committee. I'll look you right in the face. Had Danielle take the Trevor option out of the,
Yeah, no, you should literally, like, I should have this, whatever the comes out of this, it should be named after me. It should be named after me. Yeah,
The Trevor Sansucci rule on finance committee participants.
does anybody have?
I'm never going to get a statue or anything like that. If you can just name a bylaw after me, that would be great.
Anybody have any discussion relative to this one? I know it's come up a few times, and
I will just reiterate when it came up the first evening when we asked to table it. My primary concern is threefold. The first one is that it was implemented at a time when we had some health concerns within this country. There was a serious illness going around, and it does say for hybrid meetings. Technically, the Finance Committee is a supporting board. It is not an elected board, and we can't respond to the electoral. So what happens is people come before us and they want to be recognized. That's something that happens with the Board of Selectmen. They have an open mic, and they do let the citizens come before them, and there are a couple of other boards that have to report to the electorate. So my primary concern is also the cost associated with doing a meeting like this. I'm recognizing, A, that most people that need to come before us, it's very easy, and as you can tell sometimes when we are even working in the room, never mind online, it becomes very difficult and very complex to be able to hear everyone. So that's the first reason. The second reason is because I just feel that there's a value associated with all of this, and it's an expensive value. And, it's also, we meet, I can't wait for August because we'll be beyond June 30th and then we get our little break and then we don't really rev up again until November or so. And I just feel that for the amount of time that we have to spend in the budget season when we're crunching, it's important to be in person and including the individuals that are coming before us to support the budget. This is by no means just a reflection on us as members of the board, but anybody who would like to share time with us. So for those reasons, and probably a couple of others, but we've talked about this before, and I just think it's not a good utilization of the amount of effort that has to go in. You know, we talked about it earlier, IT is growing, there's a lot going on. These gentlemen that have to run these meetings, when they become public meetings like we're holding, it's no longer one person taping it in the room, it's 2 or 3, and they're jumping room to room. So I just think it would help to ease some of their efforts, because it takes one person to necessarily run our meeting, but it takes another level of employees to get it to be, you know, out to the masses and have them interact. It no longer becomes a one person. So if we got rid of that public meeting, then 2 or 3 people that are sitting there can be utilized to go to other areas just to tape meetings. Just an observation.
It's an interesting point. I don't know if it's actually true without talking to,
Well, they told us that before, that it takes multiple people. They've been in the room and they've said, if you go live, we can no longer have just one person here to do it. They've stated that to us. So I'm going by, I don't know that we
we
should,
only have one person.
right, at the moment, but they're,
Confused.
that's,
He's doing both.
no, he's not. There's another gentleman that has been coming in the room, and if you'll notice, he said, okay, gentlemen, you're going live in 10 seconds. And then what he does is he runs out of the room, and he goes to another meeting, or he goes elsewhere. So there's another gentleman, and I apologize, I don't know all of the cable individuals by name, but during certain parts of the meeting, there are multiple people back there. There's not just one. And if you recall, there was someone back there earlier when we went to...
Chris was here early, but I think Chris is a general thing. He's listening to everything, and he just sort of floats between the different meetings.
Trevor?
I was going to say, if I've obviously, I'm one of the biggest users of the service, so if I can speak candidly.
Sure.
If we want to just call it a pain in the butt to deal with the meetings that way, I understand, because I, as someone who sits on the other end of the meetings and takes them remotely, the moving everything to a roll call, feeling like there's a lot of disconnect between being part of the conversation. There are times where myself, I can honestly say, I feel like the meeting might be dragging a little bit, and trying to jump in remotely to ask a question, which I like to do when I'm here. I feel as though there's a limitation on what I can ask and when I can really like jump in to do that. So if we want to just call it that, we can call it that. But since COVID started, I've never once heard this reported as a cost issue or like a large cost. Let me finish, please. Sure. And I've been on this committee now for we started at the same time, Kev, right about the same time. This is our 9th or 10th year.
Something like that.
And up until COVID started, there's been multiple people at every taping of every one of these meetings. So again, if we want to get rid of it, that's fine. But let's not like allocate issues to it that aren't necessarily issues, because I've never once heard anyone say there's this large-scale cost associated with doing these meetings.
I think,
I'd like to defend that if I could. I didn't use the word large.
Well, you said
There's an
substantial.
additional cost. There's an additional cost.
What is the additional
Well,
cost?
they're here, if Chris wants to mention, I believe you did mention that there's multiple payroll for doing these meetings.
The actual device that we're using right now is less than $100.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the amount of people required.
My
Understanding that if you didn't do the open meeting, that's one person or 2 people at certain times that you wouldn't have to have at a meeting.
Typically, we have to have somebody from IT to set it up or monitor.
A person, but there's more than one of you here now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
both of you are being paid for being here.
I'm salaried, so,
But you're here.
yeah. And he's per diem.
Well, I understand that, but I understand that. But that's not what so I'll correct myself, Trevor. I'll be the first person to say I'm wrong. But at one point, we were told that there was additional costs, and so I'm not going to make something up. If I misspoke, I will say it, but I'm not trying to put you on the defense. I'm just, as a board member, going by discussions I've had, and in all fairness, you know, you're here this evening, and you're here multiple times. It seems like the couple of times that you're not able to make it is during audit season, and that's fully respected. You're a contributing member to this board. It's not isolating the couple of meetings that you're not, because you're a contributor. My only point is that I brought it up, and I'll retract it if I'm mistaken, but I was told that that when they have meetings, that multiple people have to be here. So if I'm mistaken and there's no cost, then I don't want to misspeak.
I only bring the cost up as a part of this because coming off the heels of a $21,000 IT transfer where we're talking about how would we handle something in a situation where we can't all be together and we have to do something on the fly, other things of that nature. I'm curious about what the cost is in the sense of if we're to continue having it just for the sake of needing it.
No, my understanding is that some meetings have to be, because they're public access, they have to be on cable.
Sure.
Have to allow the public to participate. So my understanding over the last couple of years, especially during COVID, and with other committees forming and other things going on around town, that they're getting pulled in a lot of directions. So I wasn't implying that it's just a municipal board meeting, but you've got the schools, you've got other arenas that are at the present time having to utilize their sources.
Sure.
So those are also growing. So when I meant a cost saver, I was implying that we might be one of those groups that it's not such a necessity
Sure.
that we could give time to someone else. So it might not be, it could be an opportunity cost as opposed to a value associated with a dollar.
And that's totally valid, and I'm not trying to challenge it in any way. It's more of a, if we're gonna use that in the logic, I just want to get a better understanding of what we're saying as that.
Okay, Michael?
So, through the chair, I'll just say, I go back and forth on this issue because, as Trevor points out, having to do the roll calls, especially during budget season, often extends the amount of time that we have to be here. There's awkwardness when someone wants to jump in with a question. Sometimes they can't hear you, sometimes you can't hear them. There's plenty of technical issues, but as Trevor pointed out, if we ever did have an emergency, it is a helpful thing to do. I'm a father of a young kid. My wife is also involved in town. The board that she's on also regularly meets on Wednesdays at the same time, essentially. I have not, because I have been lucky enough to be able to find childcare on the nights when I've needed to, had to take advantage of the remote access, but I do think having the option is very helpful. Being able to choose between either being present and figuring out childcare or not participating versus being able to choose between not participating or calling in from home while my son plays in the room next to me or something like that is a really nice option for me, and I'm sure it is a nice option for anyone else who's in a similar situation. It doesn't have to be kids. It could be any of your family situations. I personally, I have gone back and forth on this issue, I think, based on whether or not we had to take a roll call at each meeting. So, there are definitely times when I am very anti-remote. Yeah, but having, I'm actually kind of glad we tabled it, because of having had more time to think about it, I am actually in favor of continuing to allow hybrid meetings for the reason that I said. If my wife is in a meeting and she's a member of another board in town and it's meeting at the exact same time, and I have the option to without childcare stay home and still participate, ask the questions that I want to ask, maybe we don't have a quorum and I can still be that extra vote.
That was my next point in this, is there are times where Danielle has yet to call me, and that's fine. But Sharon would call me from time to time and say, hey, can you Zoom in tonight? We don't have a quorum for the meeting as it stands. Obviously, my personal thing is I know I can't ask the town to change their fiscal year. So budget season falls during a particularly busy time for me. So I kind of, when I went into public accounting and started working with that, at the time it was Ed and Julie, and it was like, hey, we'd still like your voice on here when we can have it, so please continue in any capacity and stay on that way, which is kind of what I've tried to do through the remote stuff. And again, if it doesn't work and it's a pain for everybody, totally understand, and that's fine. But I guess that's another thing for me that I've noticed is that there have been times where we've not been able to produce a quorum, and it's been an aid in that. But I guess my other thing is, does it have to be, we have it all the
All or
time?
nothing.
Okay, because it's all or nothing, so we
The way you
can't,
post the meeting and everything else, sure.
okay.
Well, Karen, did we get any guidance from, go ahead, I'll let you do your.
I just wanted to make a comment. I know it's a committee decision, but Mike Marino was able to join us tonight remotely, but if he would have had to be here in person, because we just scheduled this, as an emergency, last week, he was able to remote in. I mean, I would have tried to give whatever explanation that I could have, but, just as an example of sometimes when it's positive to
I'd like
have
to,
it.
I'll make an additional point. And I respect everyone's views, but, I'm going to sound a little old school here, but I'm a former member of this Finance Committee, and I was a former member of this committee when we didn't have remote. And I've had to make a lot of sacrifices, and I might not have a child at home, but I do have in-laws and family, and I do have people. I just became widowed, and I didn't have remote when I was widowed. You know what I mean? So I just want to make it clear, in sounding a little old-fashioned, that unfortunately sometimes when we want to step up and participate, and what happens every day in our life is we have to make a decision on what a priority is. And if it's budget season and or we have to have a meeting and people have to be present for that. And in all due respect to the IT person, you're right, it's a benefit, it's a plus. The technology is there. But I also want to say that on evenings when I would have liked to get out here in a 45-minute meeting or an hour meeting, I've been here for 2.5 or 3 because we've had to do remote. So even though you've got the pleasure of being home, I have to sacrifice a couple of hours of my time because we couldn't just run through the agenda, but we had to do roll vote for everything, and it kept us over an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. So you can look at it either way. You can either bite the bullet and show up for the meeting and it can move fast, or we can go through remote participation and we can vote one at a time and drag a meeting into 2.5, 3 hours. So either way, you're going to put in the time.
I think I'll just add in, my concern is sort of the logistics end, is the roll call votes. They certainly, the roll calls take extra time. We all know that, we've all witnessed it. Some of my concern is, Trevor, we've been on the committee for a long time together, is I'm missing out on some of your input because I don't see those. I'm looking for cues as I look down the line to see who wants to participate, who wants to add something in. It may not always be a hand raise, it may not be the formality of, through the chair, but I sometimes can kind of get somebody's, body language and say they want to add something. I miss that when people are remote. So I mean, I guess but also tonight is a great example, Karen, when Mike is able to join us, the fire chief has joined us. We've been fortunate that we have not had a lot of outside joiners who have not been able to participate because it's not really part of, like Patrick said, that's not really how our committee is formed. We don't have an open mic component of our agendas.
Component of our agenda.
Of our agendas.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, admittedly, myself too, there have been times where during tax season where I've looked at the agenda, and if it looks, say, not overly robust, and I will bow out of logging in because I mean, it's, that feeling of what it adds is palpable from both sides. Like, I'm not denying that at all. I'm not. Mike, you can laugh all you want.
I guess mine would be the preferred is.
But I guess the thing too is that if I choose not to log in, but then someone else from the committee logs in remotely, it doesn't really matter that I didn't. So that's kind of a whole, separate thing. And again, I agree with your point that you're gonna, you're kind of it's a benefit to somebody else, but you're putting time on other people. And that's not a position I necessarily want to put other people in. That's not fair. I'm more than happy to vote to do away with it if that's the way that the committee feels on it. I'm more than happy to go in the direction of the group. I just, there may be times, particularly during budget season, where if I maintain my position as a committee member, then my participation will be lacking. That's the understanding of it. And if that results down the road into, hey, during budget season, Trevor can't make most of the meetings and my participation in the committee needs to be reconsidered because of that, that I also understand, but the remote, for me, is kind of the only way I maintain that. And so that's why I hold on to it. But again, I'm one member of a larger group. So if you guys also think it's a pain, happy to.
I would just like to also say that I don't think that your limited participation is a hindrance to the board. I think in the meetings you're here and in the time that you spend, you're a very valuable asset to the board. It's not by any means to say, look, if you can't be here in person, 2 absences, boom. There was a time when boards in town operated that way, that they told you that if you missed a couple of meetings, that they prefer that you were taking up a seat, and I don't think any of us feel that way at all.
Well, I still think that, I believe that is still part of our bylaws, is it not? That you have to have a certain amount of attendance?
I don't know.
I thought it was.
We're not aware of it.
That there, but, yeah. Whenever, but that's kind of, that's, again, I jokingly, like, showed up today, like, not like I showed up on my horse to, like, fight for it, but I know that I'm the biggest offender of using it, so I guess I use offender in quotes, because it's not, I use it the most, so I
used it a ton during COVID. Like, my son was sick a few times. I was sick a few, it came in handy very often when it was a bigger issue. I think part of the reason that I go back and forth on this is the framing of it as a continuation of the, emergency about COVID, because I don't really think that's what the purpose of this is anymore.
No.
The purpose is to, and if you read, there's an article attached to this item on the agenda. If you read it, none of it's focused on a public health concern. It's focused on increased ability to allow people to access, public meetings, getting to hear additional voices that you otherwise wouldn't get to hear, people not having to miss meetings because they can't catch a bus or find childcare, and those are the reasons that I'm in favor of continuing it. This is extending out through June 2027. I would be shocked if between now and June 2027 this doesn't become an option for all meetings all the time, because they've just continued to extend this out as long as possible. I totally understand the position that, I agree, if you can be here in person, I do think there's value to it. There's the personal cues, body language. You might be more willing to jump in with a question than you would if you had to come off mute, try to find your moment, and then whatever. And I think all of us agree that, the preference is to be here in person if at any point you can. And I'm not saying this to you, Trey, I'm saying it generally.
I take it all personally.
Yeah, you should. But at the same time, I think, we just had this conversation. We live in a digital world. The internet exists. These buildings are all connected. We all have an ability to call in from home. To use the same language. I am willing to make the sacrifice to be here. I'm also willing to make the sacrifice to be here for an extra half hour if it means someone can be here online. And that's in no way, shape, trying to undercut what you're saying. I do appreciate it, and I think that is, in your own words, a very old school approach. I work from home 4 days a week. I've worked from home at least 4 days a week for the last 5 years. The world is different than it was in 2020. And, I think we've had Chief Coleman call in from the fire station while he was on shift. We've had Mike Marino calling in from home or wherever he is. We have members who've called in from out of state while they're on vacation or whatever they're doing. I personally think there is value to it, but I agree that there's also value to being here. And it's just weighing, do we want to give as much opportunity for participation, or do we want to get the most we can out of the participation we get? And I don't think there's a wrong answer. I just personally am in favor of trying to make
I just want to add one thing before you do yours. And I think Michael brought up a good thing in this article. It's talking about this is sort of the wave, this is sort of the way the governor's office is moving things. And, the transparency is a big thing, especially when it comes down to dollars and cents. And if a few more people are able to address it through different media forms, right? Chris and staff do a great job putting these out for recording on YouTube or on the cable channels, but if there are people that are able to, if it's another media form by which we remain transparent, because we are. It's the numbers are there. We're happy to show anybody what we have. I think it's just one more thing that we're reducing those barriers. And hopefully, the preferred would be in person, especially when it comes to roll calls. I appreciate that you looked at the agendas and said, whoa, there's a lot of roll calls.
Been a couple times where it's no, quote Randy Jackson, that's a no for me, dog. That's a, I'm not putting everybody through that. My question for you, Kevin, is, have you felt over the last bit of time that reaching quorum is an issue if we were to move this to a fully, like, we'll be, because again, that's my biggest fight for keeping, my biggest fight for keeping it, I say fight loosely, but my biggest pro in it is that if we were having an issue during budget season where we've said, we need the school committee here this night, we need these people here this night, we need these people here this night, and all of a sudden it's maybe a snowy day or this or that, or something happens with somebody and all of a sudden quorum is an issue. Do you see that, have you, over the course of the last maybe, this past, because obviously I was pretty much fully remote for budget season, so have you seen that as a trend that we're falling in and out of quorum? Because if not, I'm willing to say, get quality out of the people that you have here. I think we have a good group on hand, rather than putting the burden on everyone entirely.
Well, I think quorum has not been an issue in the last few years. We've
Yep.
done well. We've got a good group here that's, is able to schedule themselves well, and
But 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, there was a
And
point.
that's what I'm remembering, that
Yeah, there was a point where we literally had only a quorum of appointed members. And
Right.
if one person couldn't make a meeting, we couldn't have a meeting.
Yeah, so-
I know I joined online 2 or 3 times where that was the difference between having a meeting or not having a meeting. And so I get that times are flush. We got people applying, coming out of the woodwork to be on finance committee, but that hasn't always been the case. So, yeah.
I will say that when I was before the select board, the one question they asked me was, can you make meetings, and how important it is to make a meeting? It was really the only thing they asked me.
They didn't say in person.
Well, they didn't say in person, but they
They didn't say that, right.
They didn't, but I would tend to think making meetings is in person in my mind. I didn't know remote was an option at the time.
That's when you were supposed to say that I joined for the flexibility.
But-
I'd say from someone who doesn't feel strongly either way, I could live with it, live without it. I think for the number of times it would have saved the day with quorum, since I've been here for over a year, I don't really even remember one, maybe one. I know Trevor's done a lot.
You and Steve joined at the same time, and you were the two that got us back to not needing, you were our extras. We didn't have anybody until you guys joined.
And that's the thing with the public, when I joined, it was like we had a group, but stuff is cyclical, and you'll have there's the good times and the bad times, and it tends to flow. So it's like, it might not be an issue now, could be one down the road again.
And I would say if it becomes an issue again, then at that point, then we have to get new members. Like if Steve stopped showing up every time, then, sorry, Steve.
Steve's never going to not show up.
But yeah, I mean-
Maybe two.
So, but yeah, I guess my stance on it is, if we don't feel like we don't feel like changing it is gonna inhibit us from being able to hold our meetings on time, hold ourselves accountable to the departments that come before us, then I think we'd be fine without it.
my concern with taking it away is, once we take it away, it's going to be difficult to get it back. It'll be, and then we're pretty flush with members right now, but if we go low, there's nothing worse. Yes, I don't like the extra time for roll call votes, but I also wouldn't like to have to be here and find out we didn't have a quorum, and I've dedicated time to be here, and we have to cancel a meeting and reschedule and do another agenda and come back again. So that would be more offensive to me.
And then I guess what I'd like to add, just to move the question or to move the conversation, is that my original thought was that the board felt a little differently about having to go through a lot of, and they've stated there were times, people on the board have already said, there are times when I would have been in favor of this. So I think, given that I brought it up because I thought it was an effort to move it away from it, and for nothing, other than for professional reasons and nothing personal, I felt that it was important to raise it. But I'm not going to make a motion to stop it. I'm going to just sit here and say, I guess there's no change needed, because it seems to be, like I said earlier, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So if nobody wants to fix it, then I'm going to leave it alone.
And I think tonight's agenda literally has it as a discussion on the topic. So
Right, so next February, when it's 10:30 at night and we're on roll call, and everyone's really tired. I don't want anybody saying, ooh.
I guess my thought on this, I won't call. I guess my thought is, there's nothing as a board that's stopping us from taking a personal stance of, as board members, we either participate in person or we don't participate. And in doing that as a group, as a blood oath we can take amongst ourselves, that,
No, my sense.
you know what I mean? But my point,
sense, if you can't make it, usually you're not going to make it online.
Sure,
You
but-
know, if you can't make it in person.
but my point is that there's nothing precluding us as a group from saying, hey, if you can't make it on, unless it's like a, hey, we need somebody, please log on, we don't do that, and we just leave it open as an option for the constituents and for the departments to use as a vehicle to communicate with us during the meetings, and then that eliminates the issues that Kevin has mentioned about
I haven't been online, I don't remember when the last time I joined a meeting remote is, and I still think having it as an option is valuable.
Yeah, and that's,
And so,
Saying meet
like,
in the middle.
I agree.
Only join if we need.
right, and that's what I'm saying, as
Yeah.
to eliminate the, again,
But I also, like, again, personally, like, I don't even want to go as far as what you're saying, because, like, if we either keep it or we don't, in my mind. Like, if we're going to have it, I want the option to take advantage of it if I need it.
I just know the
I don't
number of,
understand why we would keep it if we're going to take a blood oath not to.
I'm just
Yeah, no, I know.
The number
but,
of
like,
times that I felt like I've put everybody in this room in a grumpy mood because I haven't hit the unmute button fast enough to say yes or no.
It's not you putting us in a grumpy mood, man. We're in grumpy moods, and you're just the scapegoat in the moment.
Kevin had a full head of hair when I started this. when
Personally,
pre-remote,
like,
full head.
Ultimately, whatever we vote on, or if we even vote, like, whatever we do as a group, I'm for. But personally, I can envision scenarios in which I will take advantage of it, again, if it's still there. I have a young child, I have a wife who's on a board that meets on the same night of the week, often at the same time. There are absolutely nights where if my childcare falls through and it's a budget that I really have a strong opinion on, I'm going to call in and I'm going to make the points I want to make. Because sometimes, somebody asks the question right before you, and sometimes nobody does. And so if I have a question, I want to make sure it gets asked. So again, there are no hard feelings if we decide not to continue remote participation. It's fine. But I personally can envision a scenario where I would take advantage of it. And if I had the option between not calling in at all or calling in on a budget that I cared about or a transfer that I had a strong opinion on, I would. And I think what you said about looking at the agenda, you're not looking just to see if it's a long agenda. You're looking to see if there's something that you have real input on. Right. And I would do the same thing. And I'll be the first to say there are moments where I am cursing we have Cisco now. I don't even know which one this is. GoToMeeting. I spend all day on video calls. I don't want to spend any more time in my personal time. But I also just think every one of us decided to be a part of this board because we wanted to get involved in town and we wanted to have some level of oversight on how the town spends its money and understanding of what's going on and the ability to try to sort of make this a better place to live. I think, if I break my leg and can't make it up the stairs, I want to be able to call in. If my son is sick and my wife has a meeting, I want to be able to call in. If Chief Coleman is on shift and can't leave the firehouse, I want him to be able to call in. And that's my stance on it. So, again, I will have absolutely no hard feelings towards anyone who votes however they want
But
to
we're
vote.
not going to vote because I removed it from the,
Yeah, so I think.
Well, then never mind. I take it all back. I'll have lots of hard feelings, but for everyone who didn't
I already wrote everyone's name down. It's fine. It's already wrote.
So I think we had a good discussion tonight as a committee.
well, sure,
and,
but I think it just puts it to bed. I know at one point we had several people that were on either side, as you've heard this evening, and I think if anything tonight, it just gave us an opportunity to revisit it, and we'll just leave it as is. But because I had put it on the agenda, I had the opportunity.
It was worth having the
Dear
conversation.
diary, they said really mean things about me tonight.
I signed up for 5-hour
Never.
meetings, just FYI. I expect to be here for 5 hours, so.
No one else does. So please, no one else does.
So we don't have any minutes for this evening, and I would love to defer an motion to adjourn, but somebody, my vice chair failed me and didn't put the gavel out.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Second.
adjourn in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.